Hi, folks. Welcome to Crisco's Corner. Report. Biden won't support an Israeli counterattack against Iran, urging Netanyahu to take the win. Now, we all know, or most of us know, that Iran fired over 200 combination of drone and ballistic missiles from Iranian soil at Israel. And during the course, it's a long ways to go. It has to go over Jordan, a long ways. It was tracked. They say the Israelis got a lot of them, but the reality it is the U.S. got some, the French got some. The vast majority were done by the Jordanian Air Force because it passed over their airspace. And as it came closer, the Israelis got the rest. My understanding is of the 200-plus drones and ballistic missiles, 99% were stopped. Now, think about this for a minute before we go into this article. If those 200 drones and ballistic missiles, say, were hidden in Gaza, say, before October 7th, and launched on Israel, there would be less than a minute's notice in the chaos and destruction that it would have caused. Now, you're saying, well, John, the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence service, would have known they were there. Well, Mossad kind of dropped the ball when Hamas attacked Israeli outposts October 7th and slaughtered over 1,000 people. So I know they're some of the best in the world, but nobody's perfect. Now, having said that, it was supposed to be for retaliation. The Israelis bombed, supposedly, an embassy in Syria that was the Iranian embassy. They said it was a military command outpost, so it loses its status, diplomatic status, as an embassy. Actually, it was the building next to the embassy, but let's not split hairs here. So one has one side opinion, one has another. I believe it was justified. And this 200-plus drone ballistic missile launch was retaliation for that. Now, having no casualties, one young girl hurt, I guess not very seriously, thank God. President Biden says, okay, Prime Minister Netanyahu, we stopped 200-plus drones and ballistic missiles from hitting your country. Take the win.
The world has changed because of what Trump has done. And the American people, including independents and some Republicans, know how bad he is, know how much he's misrepresented, know how he's getting close to getting us in a war. I said, as the walls close in on this man, I'm worried he's going to get us to war in Iran. Unfortunately, I may have been right. The fact of the matter is there's a lot at stake in this election.
Take the win. Do not retaliate from the launch from Iranian soil. The first time ever, by the way. Joe Biden will not support an Israeli counterattack against Iran after the Islamic regime escalated the conflict between the two countries. On Saturday evening, Iran launched an attack. We all know about that. Biden said in a conversation with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that he would not support any retaliatory attacks from the Israeli Defense Forces. Biden and his senior advisors are highly concerned an Israeli response to Iran's attack on Israel would lead to a regional war with catastrophic consequences. Biden told Netanyahu the joint defensive efforts by Israel, the U.S., and other countries in the region led to the failure of the Iranian attack, according to the White House official, mostly Jordanian, because it was their airspace. Biden also reportedly urged Netanyahu to take the win after Israel successfully intercepted nearly all the drones with the support of the U.S. military. They keep saying that, but it was Jordan that did a lot of it, and rightfully so. I'm not putting anybody down or propping anybody up. Now, think about this for a minute. You're the Israeli prime minister. And these 200-plus drones and missiles are very, very expensive. Now, they have a drone manufacturing plant, I guess, in Iran, a couple of them. And they sell these drones. Of course, they get cash. Or they trade it for oil or gas with Russia and other places, which is the same as cash, to prop up their regime. Now, their military part of their regime. Now, having said that, look at all of my understanding is $100 billion, according to Ted Cruz, was released to the Iranians under Obama. 100+ billion, that's B billion, was released to the Iranians under Joe Biden. Gee, you're Netanyahu, and you're thinking, this guy's telling me not to do reprisals because they tried to obliterate a lot of my country during a war while we're still fighting in Gaza, Hamas. But he's the one that allowed them to pay for all these things. So how much respect am I going to have for his opinion? Sadly, the Israelis do depend on the United States for a lot of military, but not exclusively. They could do it without the U.S. It just would be harder. So let's put ourselves in Netanyahu's spot. Now, I could put myself in Joe Biden's spot, President Biden's spot, but I'm not that brain dead. And they're wondering, how could this happen? I mean, we gave $200 billion in less than 8 years to Iran, and this is what they did with it? You know, they didn't spend it on their people? Duh, do you think? When the leader of Iran, the Ayatollah, and all of his subordinates scream death to Israel every day and in every school and in every playground and every mosque every day? Oh, okay. Really? Biden told Netanyahu the U.S. will not participate in any offensive operations against Iran, even though they could be considered defensive operations, taking out drone factories and missile launching sites. Operations against Iran will not support this operation, Netanyahu said he understood. Now, what does that mean? That the U.S. can give him a bunch of money for weapons? Can supply weapons that are used, what he says is an offensive strike? The U.S. isn't directly participating. It's a fine line to walk. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, the one that went to the hospital and didn't tell the President of the United States that he was going under for an operation, what a class act, spoke on Saturday and said his Israeli counterpart, Yoav Gallant, and asked that Israel notify the U.S. ahead of any response against Iran, a senior Israeli official said. Now, that having said, in the last couple of days, look at all the leaks out of the State Department. And that is, let's not kid ourselves, directly or indirectly ordered by Blinken, the Secretary of State. Those leaks from the State Department to the media were not somebody in the State Department that wanted the truth to get out. They were planted leaks. So here you are, the head of the Israeli Defense Forces, and Defense Secretary of the U.S. says, well, tell us when you're going to end response against Iran ahead of time, knowing they leak all over the place. Yeah, okay. In his official statement on Saturday evening, Biden confirmed that he spoke with Netanyahu, but not to provide any specific details. He probably doesn't remember. He'll have to read the transcript later. I've spoken with Prime Minister Netanyahu to affirm America's ironclad commitment to the security of Israel. See, now he can say to the people that are on defense about Biden and Israel, Hamas, we're pro-Israel. Look at my voters are pro-Israel, and we're going to do the commitment. And then his progressive base, which he's losing by the ton because of the Israeli-Hamas conflict, he's going to say, we're not going to help them in any offense maneuvers against Iran. So we get to play both sides of the street. I told that Israel really demonstrated a remarkable capacity to defend against and defeat any unprecedented attacks, sending a clear message to its foes they cannot effectively threaten the security of Israel. Oh, yes, they can. We think Israel's overreacting. Tomorrow I'll convene with my fellow G7 leaders. Well, that'll do a lot of good. That's about as good as going to the UN, which had, over 75 times they condemned Israel in the last few years. I think it was 78 or something like that. And only 2 against Hamas. Yeah, those are the people who's going to go to coordinate things in a diplomatic response. Against Iran's brazen attack. Who wrote that for him? He continued, my team will engage with their counterparts across the region. We will stay in close touch with Israelis leaders. And while we have not seen attacks on our forces or facilities Today, we will remain vigilant to all threats and will not hesitate to take all necessary action to protect our people, just like it did in Afghanistan when the suicide bomber killed 13 U.S. service people and left billions and billions of dollars of planes, tanks, equipment, weapons, ammunition, radios, radar, computers, you name it. The list is endless. Several $1 billion worth. What they say it was, all those armaments that the U.S. left in Afghanistan made the Taliban, what was it, the 15th largest army in the world, equipment-wise? Give me a break. To protect our people. Protect our people when it's convenient for you. I know I sound really harsh, but this is a big deal. So here we are. Won't support an Israeli counterattack. Take the win. Oh, I see how that works. Well, they go all out, first time ever, from their own soil to make no mistake about the fact that it came from us instead of one of our surrogates, like they usually do. And the U.S. does it too, and so does the Soviet Union. Well, I should say Russia now. They always use a surrogate in war. Syria, Lebanon, you name it, Egypt. It's gone around for decades and decades. They did it from their own soil. Maybe it was to appease the hardliners in Tehran, knowing that the Jordanian Air Force, U.S., and many Israeli defense fighters and other defense things like the dome they have and all kinds of other defensive items, technology, would stop them all. And even the Iranian media says, we obliterated Israel with our massive attack, and Israel's shaking in their boots and blah, 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 because they can't get the real news. Not as bad as North Korea, but the general public thinks Iran put a dagger in their heart, you know, that kind of biblical talk. So, should they back off? What do you think? Should the Israelis back off and give Joe Biden what he wants? Because he's losing his base of progressives because of his support of Israel. And if Israel doesn't retaliate against Iran, he doesn't have to show support, at least publicly. It's a dangerous game he's playing. And he's losing in the polls. He's losing his grip on the swing states. Things aren't going well for the Biden administration, and rightfully so. But of all people he's thinking, I'm going to lose to, it's got to be Trump, right? By the way, I'm going to play a video now before I get off. What Joe Biden said in 2020. I'm going to play it again because you just saw it earlier, and I'm going to play it again. And until next time, God bless, goodbye, and good luck.
The world has changed because of what Trump has done. And the American people, including independents and some Republicans, know how bad he is, know how much he's misrepresented, know how he's getting close to getting us in a war. I said, as the walls close in on this man, I'm worried he's going to get us to war in Iran. Unfortunately, I may have been right. The fact of the matter is there's a lot at stake in this election.